So obviously my story is still ongoing, but I thought it would be important to share my personal testimony of what God's been doing in my life over the past 2, 3 years. Um, even dating back 7, 8, 9 years of what God has done in my life, and just to share as an encouragement and hopefully to help others who are going through the same or have gone through the same thing, just to encourage and just to put that out there for people to see. And really, where I think my story starts is in my early teens, where I began to kind of find, start finding out who I was and who I am, and um, that mixed with teenage hormones and everything. Your mind is just like everywhere. And when I was 12, 13, 14, I was just a very deep thinker. I would think very deeply about like everything and everything that I came across, nature and um, just literally everything. I was just always trying to like come to a conclusion of how things were and how things were made and what things did and how they did it and why things were the way they were, and just like fascinated with just uh, the world basically and the universe and things like that. And I knew I've been I gave my life to Christ when I was 5, and I believe fully that I placed my trust in Him at that age. And so I knew and I know that God is the creator. He's designed all these things and He's the reason why. But I still didn't understand these things, and I just like was just fascinated about them. This thought process was, I guess, innocent and okay at the time. But at about 15 years old, I watched the movie The Truman Show with Jim Carrey, and it was an innocent movie whilst watching it, I guess, but it sowed a seed in my mind where, because of being a deep thinker, I kind of began to think um, and place myself in his shoes and think, oh, like what if I'm on TV, or what if I'm that person who's everyone's watching. And it's kind of it sounds silly, thinking back on it, but when you're in that moment, it's just like it feels so real. Um, but that led me down quite it was quite short, but it wasn't a very good path where I just began to question everything again and think, what's going on? Am I being watched? Are there cameras everywhere hiding? And even to the point, like the worst parts where I was thinking, are my family members even real? And uh, that was obviously horrible. It wasn't of God at all. And in the end, I kind of came to God and said, I know these things are a lie. I know these things aren't of you, God. And I gave it to Him. I cast my cares and anxieties onto Him and just said, you got to help me with this, God, because I don't know where this has come from. And I think ultimately, where that did come from was just not being close to God and not uh, having that relationship where things like that wouldn't even gain a foothold. And um, so that was kind of like one of the big moments in my walk and my journey where I kind of was stumbled and was really struggling with mental battles. And this was during secondary school, which is like in the UK from like 11 years old to like 15, 16, 17 years old. And that was secondary school was okay. It was good. I enjoyed it, but I didn't have many friends in the school because just the way I am and the way I feel God has made me and created me to be. I've kind of purposely set myself apart from others because of just the fact that I don't like mixing um, with things that are not of God. And this isn't something that I'm claiming for myself. It's something that I believe God has placed inside me, but it's been tough because um, it's caused me to like I've never been to a party with friends. I've never gone out with any friends from that age when I was at that age group and even older. I've never gone out with friends from school. I don't know what it's like to do that. Um, and so it caused a lot of feelings of loneliness, where people would say, why don't you just come out with us? Why don't you just come have a drink or something like that? Or why don't you come and do these things? And it, like, even questioning like why are you doing these things? Like, who do you think you are, kind of thing. And it, that in turn makes you question yourself, like, why am I doing these things? And I feel like you could go two ways, where you think you don't know why you're doing these things, so you just join them. But I think God gave me that ability to just say, I know why I'm doing these things, and I'm doing it for God. I'm doing it to be set apart for Him. And even though I didn't fully understand why in that moment, I knew that there was a, a higher purpose and reasoning for that from God. And so I just again left it to Him, and it just said, God, I'm just going to do this for you. And if it turns out I've wasted my time and I should have just, gone out with my friends, then that's that. But if not, then I'm just trusting you with it, God. And so that was my secondary school age. It was okay. I struggled a lot with just like loneliness, and I didn't really speak much at that age, like with people, and just kind of kept it to myself. That didn't help with the thinking side of things, because I was always by myself and always left to think. I was just constantly overthinking, and it wasn't a good healthy thought process. And but yeah, anyway, it kind of carried on into sixth form, which is like 16 to 18 years old. And it was, from the start of that, it was pretty steep decline, I think. So from my secondary school, there was no one apart from one girl who came to my sixth form school. And we weren't even really friends. We just knew of each other. So it was difficult because I had to make friends all over again. And I found a few people, but again, it was the same situation where I just couldn't make friends with these people, just because they were so far outside of what I was looking for. And it was, what I was looking for is a relationship which would help me edify myself in Christ, and really help me to push me forward in my spiritual journey with God. And these people just lacked all of that, because they were just worldly people. And it's one of those things where you can see it's like a blessing and a curse, because although God's placed that on my life to just separate myself, it's just been lonely and difficult and hard. And doing sixth form by myself, it's a lot harder academically. And you want to do it with people who are like-minded and will push you, and I had absolutely none of that. And that's what really began to make me struggle, and I fell into like quite a big pit of like anxiety, and just like worrying about everything. And especially with like the oncoming exams and everything, where they say these exams are what pave the way for the rest of your life. It was just a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, and a lot of anxiety. And this kind of built over 2 years. Halfway through, or like 6 months through, I kind of like came to my parents and spoke to them about it. And about halfway through, they asked me whether I wanted to quit. And I was kind of sat there, and I contemplated whether to just finish it. And even like, talks of like therapy, and talks of like these different types of things. And again, although I was going through this, I knew that God was with me through it. Even though He felt a million miles away, I just, for some reason, knew that God was with me through it. And I said to my parents, like, no, I'm gonna finish this, and I'm just gonna see where to go from then on. So I finished it. I didn't get great grades that I would have hoped for, but it is what it is. And ultimately, I'm happy I did what I did. And even if I helped impact that some of the people in my school with sharing with them things, I don't know how God is going to use that time, or has used that time. But anyway, after that, I took a gap year out, and it kind of alleviated some of the pressure. I didn't have to worry about too much. I was just focusing on kind of just chilling out and just relaxing and just winding down after quite a horrible 2 years, until 31st of October, Halloween night, where I was in the gym with my dad. And I was just on one of the machines, and suddenly I just felt consistently like I was going to pass out, like constantly I was going to pass out. And there was like a seed in my mind that had kind of been like ongoing, where like when I was like 16 years old, it was just a random moment where like I kind of stood up too fast and basically blacked out. And although in the moment it was quite scary and I didn't think too much of it, after that, obviously it was kind of in my mind. And so every time I went to the gym and did anything strenuous, it was kind of a bit of a blockage where I constantly thought I was gonna kind of pass out or something. And so on this night, Halloween night, we were at the gym, and I was just doing my normal stuff, and I just was just thinking I was just gonna black out, like, and it got like the sensation got stronger and stronger and stronger, and I looked over to my dad, and he kind of like looked at me through the mirror, and he said like, "Are you okay?" And I didn't know what to say because I didn't know what was happening, but I kind of just was slowly collapsing to the floor, and I had no idea what was going on, because I wasn't passing out, because I would have been like, passed out by then, but I was just like in this state of just extreme like anxiety and like what is going on. Um, this was obviously like my first panic attack that I've ever had. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what was going on, but it was a panic attack, and it was I guess the culmination of the previous 2 or 3 years, kind of just overflowing into what led to 6 months of panic attacks, where um, you know everything of all of my life was affected, and from eating, I couldn't eat because I thought I was going to choke. When it was, if I was in a room which was really light, I thought I was going to pass out. If I was in a room which was really loud, or had very loud noises, if I was kind of like going somewhere and something was really loud, I thought I was going to pass out. If the room was really hot, I thought I was going to pass out. If it was too cold, I was going to pass out. It was just every single thing. It was just this one thing, was like, you're going to pass out. And funny enough, over that course of 6 months, I never passed out. I actually wasn't even close to passing out, but it was the lies of the enemy just constantly in my ear saying, this thing's going to happen, and causing me to fear, and causing me to, have anxiety about these things. And no lie that was told would ever happen. And it was to even the point where like I would go to sleep after a day of feeling like I was going to pass out for 18 hours, go to sleep, and my dreams would be me in a desert, drinking, trying to find water to drink, but I couldn't find water to drink, and passing out in the desert, and waking back up in my dream and passing out, and then I wake up in reality, in real life, and I would feel like I'm going to pass out. And that was my day to day for 6 months straight. I couldn't eat properly, like I said. I was doing my driving courses and my driving like exams and everything before this, and this just took over. I couldn't do any of that anymore. It was just one thing after another, where even times where I would be trying to go to sleep, and in my mind my body would stretch to the size of the room, and then suddenly I would be all the way down to like the size of like an ant. So it's hard to explain, but it's like my mind was just doing things which were just horrible experiences. And I remember one key element in it and through it was this fear of sea creatures, this fear of like not necessarily anything under the sea, but like fictitious, like massive underwater animals. And I think there's a few reasons where this came from. Like, for example, when I was like really, really little, my parents took me to the cinema to see Nemo. And apparently, I don't remember it, but apparently I kind of just went in and came out screaming, because it was like one of the scary moments in the film at the time. And I think like that, even at a young age, potentially is kind of like caused a little fear of things like underwater and things like that. And then I remember when I was like 11 or 12 years old, I went away in my year six, day out. We went raft building, and I we made our rafts using logs and rope and barrels, and we went onto I think it was like a bay, like a little dock area, um, and we went out on our rafts, and our raft started to sink and break up, and as it did, I kind of I fell like down the raft, and my body kind of like fell through some of the logs, and as it fell through, all four logs around me tightened, and it was tightened as I came through, so it all tightened around my neck, and so that caused me to be stuck with just my head above the water as the raft was sinking, and my head was kind of like bobbing up and down, in and out of the water, whilst the raft was kind of like, whilst I was like at the mercy of the raft pretty much, and the mercy of the waves, and I just kind of I didn't have too much time to think what to do until like suddenly I was just kind of lifted up out of the water. I don't know how it happened, but one moment four big logs are tight and wrapped around my neck as I'm sinking under the water, and the next moment I'm pulled out of the water, and then as I look around, there's no one else there. Everyone else has fallen into the water, so I guess I can only place that down to God, or an angel literally pulling me out, but I have no idea. But I've had these weird experiences with water and undersea things, and this was kind of like a big theme. Like every time I'd be scrolling on Instagram or something, and you'd have like a image of something underwater, it would just freak me out, like a massive intense amount of fear and anxiety. And I do believe there are like these demonic spirits that originate from like water and from the sea and things like that, who try to oppress and try to attack. And so yeah, that was a part of it. There's loads more to it, but I can't really share things that are inexplainable, if you know what I mean. But it got to the point where at the end of the 6 months, it was just my mind almost began to dissociate in an attempt to cope with what I was going through, and I just didn't feel, everything just felt far and distant, and I just didn't know what to do. I was many nights where I would go without sleep, lie in my bed for 10, 11, 12 hours at night, just with my eyes shut, trying to go to sleep, just adrenaline constantly coursing through my veins. And it was just terrible time. It was something which I can't explain, but I know that many people have gone through. And it got to the end of this 6 months, which actually isn't too long, in the grand scheme of things. Many people go through these things for a lot longer, but I think what caused this to be cut short was the fact that I got to the point where I came to my parents and I said, I honestly don't know what to do. Like, being truthful, suicide was never an option. It's never been an option for me. It's just the way of, my mind is that suicide has never been an option. But if suicide isn't an option, and life now, or life then was, at a point where I couldn't even comprehend living like that for any longer, I came to my parents and said, I don't know what to do. And it's funny because as a Christian, you would have thought I'd have gone to God and kind of just been, seeking Him. And that is ultimately what we should do. But in that moment, I didn't. And I came to my parents and said, I don't know what to do. It's like, I'm just struggling, and I just don't know what the way is forward. And they spoke to me. And at the end, I kind of just in my own head just came to God and said, God, you got to do something, because I had no idea. My parents did as much as they could, and they were just, they were a massive help. They were a massive support through what I went through, but it just still wasn't going, and it was still a massive block and a massive struggle for me. And so I came to them, and at the end of speaking with them, I kind of just came to God and said, God, I call you God, I call you my God, I know you are my God, and I know who you are. I know that you are our protector, and there's so many things that you are to us. But I just asked him then, just, God, you got to do something for me. And every time I share my story with someone, I say it's kind of like I came all the way down into a valley, and in that valley I came to God, and it wasn't that I was, teleported up to the top of the mountain again, but it was, a switch and a change in direction from that moment to where I started my journey back up to the top, and I started my journey back up and into a relationship with Him. And even through that 6 months, God taught me how to, use Scripture as the sword, use the Word as the sword, and to really, battle with these demonic spirits with His Scripture and with the Word. And this helped me in my relationship with Him. And from then on, I was able to just basically take back all the enemy has stolen. Since then I have passed my driving test. I'm able to drive now. Since then I've got a job which I wasn't able to get. I wasn't able to eat. I'm able to sleep fine. Even when, I even went to, one of my friends' birthday parties. It was at like a water park where it's a bunch of like floating things out in the water, and that was a big struggle, but I was able to do that. And I just feel like God has just given me back everything that was stolen, and given me it back in excess of what I had beforehand. And now I'm able to, speak with people who have struggled with the same thing. I'm able to speak to my church about my experiences, speak to my church about my testimony, help other, teenagers and people, and even adults who are going through panic attacks and anxiety and fear. I'm able to go out on the streets and, do one-to-one evangelism with people, speaking to them about what He's done in my life and what He can do in their lives, and just about the Word, the Bible. And it's, caused me to be so much closer to God, and it's really solidified my relationship with Him, and transformed my life. And God does, use these bad situations for good, and I'd never want to experience that again. But I do believe God has used it for good, and used it to shape me and build me into a person which I'd have never been before. So my message for this video is ultimately, for those who are Christians and believers, who are struggling with fear, anxiety, panic attacks, these types of things, and even anything else like depression and sadness and things like that. It's just trusting it in God's hands. And even though it sounds simple and sounds like it's too good to be true, like surely I can't just leave it in His hands, I think the very fact that you're wary about that shows that you're not fully trusting God with it. And it is coming to that place where no matter what happens, no matter where my future is, I'm just going to rely on God and just going to give it to Him. And it's just almost fully trusting in Him to do what He needs to do in that situation, without trying to take any control from any control yourself on that situation. And I think that's where true deliverance comes, is completely trusting in God to do that work in your own life. Where there seems to be no way, He always makes a way. And that's what I've done from, the mercy and the grace of God on my life. And only by Him am I in the place that I am now, even able to, post these things on YouTube, to, at the moment, quite a small audience, but believing for the future that, many people will see this, be encouraged, and will themselves fully trust in God. And for those who are unbelievers, who are struggling with anxiety, fear, panic attacks, if I'm honest, there is only one answer. And you can do therapy, medication, and everything like that, but there is one true answer, and it is Jesus. And He's the only one who can truly deliver you from that completely. He can do it even now as you're watching this video. He can completely take every single thing that you're struggling with away, and not away for the day, but away for forever. And that's something that you have to decide about, because it's whether you go to God with that, or whether you try and do it yourself in your own strength and your own abilities. And I don't believe there is anyone who is able to battle this and get through it completely by themselves without God. And my message to you is just to go to Jesus, just to come to Jesus, and just to lay everything before Him, so that he can take these things from you. He says his burden is light, his yoke is easy, and it's laying our heavy and difficult burdens down and giving them to him and taking on his yoke and his burden, which is light and easy. And I think that's just the message. That's what's been laid upon my heart. It's just to come to Jesus with full trust, just asking him to do all that only he can do, and to look to him for salvation, to look to him for deliverance. One big key scripture for me through that time was the quite famous Psalm 91, and I just want to read it now and just read it as an encouragement, read it as a blessing, and read it as a declaration over anyone who's still watching this video. And so Psalm 91 says, "The one who lives under the protection of the Most High dwells in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say concerning the Lord, who is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. He himself will rescue you from the bird trap, from the destructive plague. He will cover you with his feathers. You will take refuge under his wings. His faithfulness will be a protective shield. You will not fear the terror of the night, the arrow that flies by day, the plague that stalks in the darkness, or the pestilence that ravages at noon. Though 1,000 fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, the pestilence will not reach you. You will only see it with your eyes and witness the punishment of the wicked, because you have made the Lord my refuge, the Most High your dwelling place. No harm will come to you. No plague will come near your tent, for he will give his angels orders concerning you, to protect you in all your ways. They will support you with their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. You will tread on the lion and the cobra. You will trample the young lion and the serpent. Because he has his heart set on me, I'll deliver him. I'll protect him because he knows my name. When he calls out to me, I'll answer him. I'll be with him in trouble. I'll rescue him and give him honor. I'll satisfy him with long life and show him my salvation." If you're struggling with fear, anxiety, panic attacks, all these things, even just reading that scripture, Psalm 91, every day, just claiming it over your life and declaring it, coming to Jesus with everything you have, I truly believe that you will be delivered.